What's up, guys? We are back with another Overwatch review, taking a look at one of the more recent 2-packs that has been hitting in Wave 2 as it starts to trickle in. So today we're taking a look at the white 2-pack. So we've got Posh Tracer and we've got white Hat McCree. So they kind of go together because their skins are sort of the same color. We've got them here in the standard 2-pack box for the line. So you've got artwork for the figures on the front, figures in the window. You've got their class emblems on the side, and then the back has that same artwork for the lineup of the wave, as well as a little bit of a stats write-up for these two. So let's do it. Let's pull these guys out and take a look. And here they are out of the packaging. We've got our McCree figure, we've got our Tracer figure, and of course one of these is new, so we have not seen McCree yet, although he is getting a single pack release right around now, so we'll see him sooner rather than later, and we've already seen Tracer. She was in Wave 1 and is repacked in the single case packs for Wave 2. So we're going to take a look at them individually. Of course, we're going to run through Tracer first because she's exactly the same figure we've already seen, just with a new coat of paint, basically, and then we'll jump into McCree. So as I mentioned, Tracer is exactly the same figure that we've seen before. She's just a repaint, which, I mean, frankly, we're going to see a lot of this in this line, I believe, to an extent. I'm sure they're not going to do everything, but they're going to get their mileage out of what are essentially unique molds. It's not Marvel Legends. They're not reusing parts really well across this line. So we're going to see these, and I'm not too upset about that. A lot of them, I think, have been pretty decent in terms of skin recolors, and I'm a big fan of this one in particular. I like the way this one looks. I like it better than the actual default skin, so that's all right. So as far as articulation, we've already seen this figure before. Head can look up a little bit, she can look down, she can go side to side, arms go out, rotate at the shoulder, single rotating elbow. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. You've got an upper diaphragm twist, so backwards, forward, side to side, and then you do have an ab crunch. So it's that newer style articulation they're doing. It's very reminiscent of, at least for Hasbro, of the Jaina Solo figure from Black series. You've got legs that do full splits. They kick forward, they kick backwards. You've got a thigh cut. You've got double jointed knees, and then you've got rocker and you've got hinge. So she moves exactly as you would expect if you've already seen this figure before, and she's pretty decent in terms of dynamic positioning. She works well enough. I would have loved to have seen double jointed elbows, which, you know, we always say when it comes to Hasbro females, but she does move around pretty well, all things considered. Now, as far as aesthetics go, again, I mentioned she looks pretty good. I like this skin, so I'm already partial to the way she looks to begin with, but I think they did a pretty good job with this one. Everything is really, really clean on this figure, and with Wave 1, I had a few kind of reservations when it came to some of the paint applications across the board. No figure was really perfect, but this one looks really nice, and a lot of it comes down to just, I think, the color choices here. Everything works pretty well, even the fact that the plastic that's gold doesn't match with the paint that's gold. I don't think it's necessarily a fault. It really just makes things kind of stand out a little differently. So the figure is mostly white, obviously. She does have her harness that wraps around from like the upper part of her hips and her thighs to her midriff. We've got the removable bomb on the back, just like the first figure. So, you know, you've got her ultimate there. You've got the, you know, the little chronal engine on the back, and then the front, nice metallic gold paint that runs down the legs with some gunmetal gray paint there as well. And then you've got it all over her chest. You've got some Tampa logos on the arms for, you know, you've got the Union Jack over here, and then you've got the Tracer logo over here on this side. And in general, I think she looks pretty good. You know, she is a little on the small side. She's not, I don't think she's undersized for this line. I think she's pretty well in line with the other figures. She's a little over 5 inches tall. She's not 100% 6-inch scale here, but I do think she works pretty well with the rest of this line. And in general, you know, just like I said, this figure works for me because of this color scheme, and I think they did a pretty good job. Nothing's really bleeding anywhere. The metallic pearlescent plastic, always a positive for me just because I like that personally, but the little details on this figure work really well. And then the head sculpt is, again, it's the same thing we saw before. It's got the visor, so it does kind of magnify her eyes a little bit, but it's clean and crisp, and you've got her kind of wild hairstyle, which works really well. So if you like the first figure and you aren't upset about getting a recolor already, then you're going to really like this one, because frankly, all the details are there, and it's just really clean and crisp, and it looks like she jumped right out of the game. Now, as far as accessories for Tracer goes, she has, well, pretty much the same stuff that you would expect to get if you're familiar with the figure. So you've got her two kind of pulse pistols there, and these are, of course, meant to be the golden guns that you can get in the game. So you've got two of those. Sculpt is just like we would expect, but there is no really fine detail on them in terms of paintwork. It's just the gold. Very metallic, very shiny. You've got the two energy effects. These guys are, of course, kind of keyed, so they clip onto the front of the guns themselves. They don't actually port into anything, the guns port into them. And then you've got a couple of extra hands. So you've got a open palm kind of waving style hand, and then you've got the two-finger pose hand here that we've already seen before. So good stuff for her. You know, it's exactly what she needs. And then of course you've also got the removable bomb on her back, which isn't counted as an accessory, but of course it really is. Now for our Robo-Cowboy friend McCree here, he is of course 100% new. We've never seen this guy before. Well, at least I've not seen this guy before. I do know that some folks have the regular one already, but this is basically the exact same figure. So we know what we're going to see with McCree going into this one. So you've got a head that is really, really locked into place, and it's mostly because of his, you know, kind of scarf poncho kind of thing that's over here. So he can't really look up. You know, it's also because he's got a full head of hair, but he can look down a little bit, and then you've got rotation side to side. The arms can go out, and then you've got rotation. He does have a butterfly joint in there as well. This guy is really restrictive. It's more so than I had expected, at least on his left, so of course you're right. He's only got single jointed elbows too, so that is a little limiting, and I'm assuming it's mostly because he's got rolled up sleeves, so that sculpt is going to pose a problem. I don't know what they could have done to get around it, but of course it does kind of limit things. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. You do have an upper diaphragm joint, so backwards, forwards, and side to side. And then he's also got a crunch down here as well, so you can get him to go backwards and forward pretty decently. Legs go out really far. They kick forward all the way, backwards a little bit. Thigh cut, of course. Double jointed knees, but they only go back so far because he's got big chunky pants basically. And then you've got rocker and hinge, but that is really limited down here as well because he's got the big cuffs that kind of sit over top. So he can look backwards and forwards, but not much side to side. And then you've got rotation down here as well. So he is, I would say, as articulated as a lot of other figures in this line, save for the single jointed elbows, but his sculpt in general, kind of like a lot of other figures in this line, does limit how he can move at the elbows, at the shoulders, and then down there at the ankles specifically. Now, in terms of the overall look and feel for McCree here, I think for the most part they did a pretty good job. He is on the slightly more basic side when it comes to this skin, and that's just kind of what the skin is. It's white with varying shades of other whites and a little bit of gold, but it works pretty well. And I like McCree's design to begin with. He's not one of my favorite characters to play, but I really like his design. So you've got basically just kind of a standard guy with a little bit of augmentation here. So the big thing is obviously he's got a robot arm with some extra sculpted detail. You've got a kind of the skull that's on the wrist. You've got the robo hand, and then you've got a little bit of silver paint down here to bring out some of that embellishments. You've got some body armor on his torso, and then some cyborg elements at the midriff. He has a standard humanoid arm, but he's got different hands, obviously. So you've got the robo hand over here, and then the hand that he comes with out of the box is actually like a quick draw hand. So he can't hold anything with this. It's meant to be posed that he's about to draw his gun, which of course can go in the holster on his belt, where you've got the bullets down there. You've got the kind of quintessential Banff buckle there, which honestly I'm really surprised Hasbro was able to do based on its meaning. It's not very kid friendly. And then you've got the flashbangs that actually come off the belt, which can be held in his cyborg hand. And then you've just got kind of standard pants with a little bit of like off-white coloration, and you've got his cowboy boots with the spurs down there. So, you know, he is pretty basic, but I think they did a pretty good job of making this figure. And then of course you've got the poncho that kind of sits over top. And despite the fact that it does kind of limit him in terms of movement, and it is a little thick, it works, and it looks pretty good. I think it hangs on him nicely. I think the sculpted wrinkles and kind of folded over nature, not to mention the tatters and the holes on it, work pretty nicely for McCree. It very much completes his standard style look when it comes to the character. And then of course you've got the head sculpt here, which has the hat, and it is attached. It's not meant to come off. And it's another instance where I think photoreal in this line surprisingly works well, despite the fact that these are video game characters and not real people. But the head sculpt is nice. I think the facial hair is really good. Everything in terms of the lips and the eyes, clean and crisp and straight. The head might be a touch small, I think. Sometimes it's hard to tell right out of the gate, but I do think that it is a little on the small side compared to some of the other figures. Some are worse than others, and I don't think he's the worst example yet, but I do think it skews a little small, which has been kind of a weird thing with this line. But overall, taken as a whole, I'm pretty happy with the way he turned out. It's not my favorite skin by any means. That would be a non-default, definitely not just a recolor, but I do like this one, and I think, again, that they translated it to figure form pretty nicely. Now, in terms of accessories, McCree doesn't have as many as Tracer, but he has pretty much what he needs. And if you count the flashbangs, he's got 3 others on his belt already. So you've got an extra robot hand, so you've got one where he's actually hitting down the hammer on his gun. You've got a trigger finger hand for his right hand, regular human hand, and then you've got his gun along with an effect piece there. And the effect piece is my one gripe. It feels like the peg is way too big for the hole in the gun at the barrel. Otherwise, though, it looks good. I mean, you can get him into some pretty decent poses. Of course, you know, kind of have him with his head down, very mysterious cowboy robot dude. It works really well. And then, of course, the gun is just like with Tracer. It's supposed to be the golden gun that you can get from competitive mode in the game itself. So another little nod to one of the many different facets of this game. So he doesn't have as many as Tracer, but I really think he's got exactly what he needs. So overall, I'm pretty happy with these figures. I think, in a general sense, this is a pretty solid set. Both of them are a little limited when it comes to articulation, so they're not perfect, but they do look really good, and that's a lot of where my interest lies. These are, of course, a great example of what Hasbro is going to do with this line in terms of trying to get their money out of these molds. Personally, I'm not too upset about that. I'm more than happy to get a couple different skins for these figures, and honestly, I like these a little bit more than the standard one, especially when it comes to Tracer. Otherwise, you know, both of them look really good. They have a great set of accessories, and they're going to look great with the other figures in the line. So, you know, if you're a big fan of the game, you're probably going to want to jump on these and take a look. They're definitely worth your time. So that's going to do it for this look at the Overwatch Ultimates Tracer and McCree 2-pack. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.